We've just absolutely skyrocketed. And I think that's because we move fast on opportunities and we take risks.
On today's episode, I have Kate Burt from HiveRisk. We talk about from 4 years ago, she was making 50,000 turnover to now approaching about $1 million turnover in that time.
So it started off, it was just me leading the show. So it's like a massive, huge sort of growth by going from sort of a, £50,000 turnover to with just shy of $1 million, with no plans to slow down.
Yeah, it's a really fast growth. We talk about things like thought leadership, community-driven projects, events. There's loads of great things that we talk about in this episode. So my name's Oli Eardley, and this is the Eardley Bird Podcast, powered by Ad People. Where I'd like to start with the podcast is just diving straight in, just to learn more about your business and the few bits and bobs that you're doing as well outside of just the regular HiveRisk. So let's start with HiveRisk. Can you talk me through the business, what you guys do?
Yeah, sure. So for anyone who doesn't know who HiveRisk is or who we are, we're a boutique risk and compliance business working predominantly with law firms. So we look after everything that is compliance and risk. So anything from your anti-money laundering obligations to setting up new law firms to the whole risk framework for law firms. And we do that with all different sorts of clients. So anything from your sole practitioner all the way up to your top 10 UK law firms. We've recently, in the last 12 months, launched a fraud offering as well. So we've got some really experienced fraud analysts and fraud practitioners in the team as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. And in terms of the business, who's the sort of main leaders within the business? Is it just you leading the show, or is there other people involved?
Yeah, so it started off, it was just me leading the show. So just a little bit of a potted history of where we came from and where we're going. So it started off, my background is I am still today a solicitor, and started off as a solicitor in litigation. So I was in litigation for about 10 years PQE, when I'm pivoted into risk and compliance, sort of self-taught, baptism of fire into compliance, really. And that was around 2016. So in that period, I sort of learned a whole new area of specialism, if you like. So risk and compliance, absolutely massive. So that was perhaps the feat that I didn't think it was. It was a massive feat to sort of learn and understand what risk and compliance actually was. So I founded HiveRisk, and actually only branded it in 2021. So it's a fairly new brand in the marketplace, but now it isn't just me as a consultant going out there and earning my crust, if you like. We've got a full proper business. We've got a fully formed board. We've got four board members and a team. In its totality, we have around 15 team members. In terms of who are the what's the word you used? The leaders or the main. If you like. So you've got myself. So I'm CEO, and I look after the strategic direction of the business and really the risk appetite of the business and where and how fast we're scaling. So I'm there as the CEO. We've got a managing director, Justine, who started as our ops director initially and kind of grew with us from the early days. We've got our technical director, Gavin Ball. He's well known in the industry. He was a MLRO at a top 200 law firm before he joined us. And we have Peter Hibbett is our commercial director. And interestingly, when one of my first in-house roles as head of risk at a law firm, Peter was the practice director there, practice manager. So he interviewed me for my first head of risk role, and then fast forward a few years, and now he's come on board with my business. So that's the leadership team, but we've got incredible people throughout the whole organization.
Perfect. And how long have you been sort of trading now as a business, HiveRisk, just to get an idea of that growth and how you got here?
So the actual entity that is our limited business is January 2017 actually, but it's gone through that evolution. So going from, I was using that limited business at that time as when I was doing locum work, when I was really like earning my stripes. So it was the entity that I used as a locum almost. But then it was really I see the start of the HiveRisk business is when we got the brand. So that was 2021. So we're looking at 4 years from when we said, okay, let's try and scale this from a one person band to a proper business. And that was really 2021 to now. So in those 4 years, I mean, it's sort of well publicized outside on LinkedIn. If you ever look on LinkedIn at our sort of growth story, but it's like a massive, huge sort of growth spike in the last few years, going from sort of a £50,000 turnover to we're just shy of £1 million now, and still that sort of steep growth curve there. Perfect. And we've no plans to slow down.
Yeah. So 50,000 to about £1 million turnover in 4 years, pretty much. Okay, perfect. And could you talk us through that growth then? Talk us through what was the things that drove that?
Yeah, I think that the first thing was really getting those three. There was initially in that 2021-2022 period, it was getting those key retainer clients on quite big contracts. So that gave us the stability to think, and the confidence to hire. So if you can imagine, I'm sort of there with my little bits of work trying to pay the mortgage, but you think actually the 3 big retainer clients coming down the track, which is sort of triple turnover overnight. So we were cash rich but resource poor. So I knew that I had to scale up very quickly in terms of our leadership structure and also the business operations, which is why as soon as I knew those 3 retainers were about to come online, I immediately hired our now managing director, but then ops director was one of my first hires, actually. You'll see this often in business advice, like go for a VA to begin with, or go for some support. I'm like straight in with an ops director, closely followed by a full-time technical director who we saw with Gavin. And I think those 2 key hires very early on, as soon as we could afford it, were I think has been the best business decision and remains the best business decision, because once you've got that really strong leadership team to drive the business, then it all just works. So that, I would say, that was the reason why we got that strong foothold. But also a key part of this, and this started before the HiveRisk brand was born, was establishing myself as a thought leader on LinkedIn, growing my network on LinkedIn. So if I hadn't done that, would we have secured the confidence of those 3 big retainer clients? I think it's all part of it, how you're positioned and how you present outwardly, because in those early days when I didn't have a presence, or didn't have that I wasn't known for being an expert in this space, when you're having those sales conversations, 1, you don't have the confidence in yourself, and 2, they don't know who you are or why they should trust you. So I would have like an hour in those early, as I say, this is like 2016, 2017, having those really good sales conversations, maybe lasting an hour. And then when maybe I didn't have the confidence to close them out, because I didn't have the confidence in what I was doing, and also did that feed through to their confidence in me. Fast forward to now, because we're out there on LinkedIn, we're proven to be experts in this space. A sales call can last 3 minutes. And it's not a sales call, because they're coming in hot. And it's more literally like, okay, they know they want to work with us. It's just more finding out what they need and who should do it, rather than having to convince that we're the people they should work with, because we put out so much, whether it's, our LinkedIn posts, or we do so many free webinars, and we're seen and we're known in the industry that we don't have to have those hard sales conversations.
No, for sure. And I think that's definitely I bet people listening to this now are thinking, I'd love to be in a position where my sales calls are just so easy. It's a couple of minutes to get them across the line. But that's a big plus point for building that thought leadership behind you, so people have that trust in what you can do. So
the other
you mentioned there.
Sorry, just to follow on there while the thought comes to me. So we've got that really easy sales conversation now, but then you've got to deliver. So it's time to win the work, although that is the first hurdle to even get sort of someone that's happy to pay you money. But we have heavily invested in our service delivery, in our process, and we're constantly reinvesting to make sure that service delivery is as best as we can make it. Because particularly when we had those 3 big retainer clients coming on in the early days, I did not want to fall flat with that, and that's why invest heavily on the service delivery and make it more efficient over time. But you can't let clients down in the early days.
So you brought on those leadership people, but then did you bring on regular members of staff then to really service them to a higher level? Is that what that was the process?
Yeah. So I say the first 2 employees, and I vowed never to have employees, actually, because of the risk of like, how are you going to pay them, make sure you pay them. So that was actually a big hurdle for me mentally to get over, that we would actually employ people. So, but as soon as I did that with those first 2 hires, then I got more comfortable with that risk. And very soon after then, we employed analysts, full-time analysts, to support that. Prior to that, we were using consultants on more, you sort of do the work, and when we get paid, you get paid. So there was de-risk for us. We had the confidence to say, actually, we want full-time employees as analysts, as consultants, and we like that stability with the employed model. We still do have consultants for some of the really specialist areas that we work in. But for that really core team, we wanted the stability for our clients and for ourselves. And we also have, which is unique for us as a consultancy compared to some of the other compliance consultants out there, our core team is on site. So whilst we deliver our services remotely, often to our law firm clients, our team is here. So I'll just do this. If you have a look out here, so we've got the team out there, some of the team, and they're having a training session. If this is an audio podcast, then sorry, that
it's a bit of both.
Lost.
But
so we've got 2 offices here at Ruby Hall, which is our head office, and we like to have people on site. So there's the supervision side of it, but also the sort of that, you gel, I think, better as a team when you're on site. So that's been really key for us.
No, I agree with that. I think when you're in the office, that sort of team mentality does obviously reinforce itself. So I think that makes sense to me. One thing you mentioned before was with those first 3 big retainer clients, you brought them on for sort of longer contracts. So obviously it gave you that confidence to be able to hire and bring people on. A lot of people think for, like, let's say, newer businesses, that having no contracts to get clients on board is the way to go. But how important was it for you to have that contract? And did the thought leadership and all the rest of the stuff you were doing behind it allow you to do that contract? Sometimes that having that confidence for someone to tie in is part of the problem.
I think there's a blend for us. So those retainer contracts, they're not the most profitable, actually, but we see them as keeping the lights on. So we know there's a set amount of money coming in. The other thing was seeing the opportunity for that type of contract. So we deliver, it's something we call compliance as a service, and it was a blend from when I was in-house as a head of risk, and I was working 3 days a week at one point as an in-house head of risk, and I wanted to step away and do my own thing. So what I asked the firm that I was working with, can I still deliver this role, but can I delegate to a team? And can I create a service out of that? So that's how we got our first retainer client, was from reimagining that. So then when we thought, okay, this model could work, that's when we accepted actually the next two. So this is how it sort of evolved organically. So the next client, the big client that came on that contract, said, can you, me personally, carry out a head of risk role to cover maternity leave for their compliance solicitor? I said, no, I can't, but I can deliver that role as a team if we've got this new service. And they agreed. But they had, going back to your question, they knew by that point I'd done some work for them in the past as a consultant, and I was growing in that thought leadership space, sort of on LinkedIn, and I was known to be a compliance expert there. Then the third big one was actually I was working with a firm. I was working for as part-time. I was working for a tech firm in the reg tech space, and one of the firms that was working with them saw me I met them in that environment and said, can you come in and be head of risk, or can you come in and support us? And of course, you'll know the answer, no,
No.
but I can
Yeah.
deliver it as a team. So it was
Yeah.
almost by accident rather than design, but then
Mm.
seeing that opportunity, was able to then roll it out. But
Mm.
those retainer contracts are crucial to our business and keeping the lights on.
Yeah.
But the one-off pieces of work are much more profitable for us. So with
Mm.
the audits, we can go in, we're very skilled at turning those around very quickly. The profit margins are better. Whereas
Yeah.
if you can imagine if you're delivering a compliance team as a service, there is no bottom to the potential resource drain on that
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
You have to just roll with what's ever coming in, and
Mm.
it's such a heavy resource. If you do it correctly,
Sure. Yeah.
it pulls on a lot of resources, but we have to have that to keep the lights on and keep that
Yeah. Yeah.
that sort of that surety that we're going to have some money in the bank.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. So you have those smaller margins for those service based things, because it's going to, as jobs come in, as work comes in, you've got to jump on it. But with something like an audit, you can kind of plan that out to price it accordingly to make a decent margin as a one off. So yeah, completely understand that. You mentioned about it, I see part of this, and one of the keys to this is the thought leadership stuff that you've done, because it allowed all these opportunities to sort of come your way. Could you talk us through, so let's say those earlier days, what you were doing from a thought leadership perspective to get out there?
I'd love to. So a little bit of a trip down memory lane. So I started in this space from a standing start. So I had a very credible career prior to this life as a litigator. So I was coming into this space as a complete unknown. So first of all, what I did, and this is going right back to the beginning, is I set up a LinkedIn profile, because prior to that, I had the old fashioned LinkedIn, if you'll remember that 20 years ago, where it's basically a CV online, and it
Sure.
was not the social media thing that it is today. So that was the first thing I did around 2016, was set up a LinkedIn profile. And then I thought, right, okay, if I want to be getting clients in risk and compliance, I need to start adding these sorts of people into my network. So from 0 LinkedIn followers and 0 connections, I was actually really brave and just invited everyone who hit that profile. So I would search on the key roles, so head of compliance or compliance officer or senior partner, whoever I thought would be a decision maker or who would want to hear what I had to say. I cold invited them in. No, hi, can you join my network? It was literally just invite.
Yeah.
And I just literally did that manually. And then I just started posting. There is I think it's still on there now. I don't write many LinkedIn articles, but there's one from 2016, and it's something to do with the role of the COLP and an avalanche of compliance issues or something. I've done some posts around that. So I started writing just articles and putting it out there. Not that anyone was reading it back then. The other thing that I was really brave around was delivering webinars. So live. So I was GDPR was just about to come out around that time. So with my legal skills and being able to read legislation, I researched the legislation, I watched different lectures around it, and just then delivered GDPR presentations. So I would do it. I was actually involved in some kind of around that time when my creativity was opening up. I got involved in network marketing for a period, and that brought the whole into different networking groups on Facebook. Actually, and because I was in this space and learning GDPR, there was a lot of small business owners in this coaching group that I was in, and I was asked to present on GDPR and what that meant to small business owners to this group. And there was 3,000 members in this group. So I've learned this, and then I just delivered it, not to lawyers, to business owners. And then I do business breakfast clubs as well, just go and present on GDPR. And then on LinkedIn, I announced that I was doing a webinar. So I didn't wait to be asked.
Sure.
I learned it and I set out my stall. And
Yeah.
then I would just, as I was learning, because I was self-taught, as I was learning, if I found something that was interesting, I'd post about that. And then where it really took off in terms of the thought leadership is when I co-founded Compliance for Law Firms with my co-founder Steve Brett from E3 Compliance Training. And the idea was compliance is a really lonely place. It can be when you don't have that network. So Steve and we met on a panel for Legal Tech Association, I think it was, and we said, hey, why don't we do a Zoom forum every Wednesday, bring compliance professionals together, and we can start talking. In fact, it was initially on Clubhouse, if you remember that. Do you remember when Clubhouse came up?
I do, yeah.
So we said, let's do it on Clubhouse. And in fact, our first episode was on Clubhouse, and we were all like, hello, what's the challenge for you this week? And there's about 5 people on it. But that quickly evolved onto Zoom because we needed a better platform, really. And now that's still 5 years on, that forum is still running. Wow, I took a little bit of a step back just in the last few months because I said, like, Steve, you run, take it forward. We've done 5 years together. That's been brilliant. But what that in it, setting up Compliance for Law Firms, what that did for me personally was raise my profile. One, by showing up in front of my ideal clients every week as the thought leader. But 2, when I was cold reaching out to people on LinkedIn, I had a credible, valuable offering to give them. I wasn't reaching out and saying, do you want to buy an audit? I was saying, hey, do you want to come to this really exciting group? And there'll be all, peers there, and we're going to be talking about, relevant things in compliance. So that's a really compelling, free, really valuable thing to get involved with. So that gave me confidence, because especially in the early days, I didn't want to sell. I still feel a bit icky about that. And I don't like feeling, I would hate for the person that I'm talking to feel sold to. So it's always about what's right for them and bringing them on that journey. So it made me feel happier about cold outreach, because I wasn't selling, I was gifting. And that was really key in the early days.
I think it's definitely on LinkedIn. I think it's the way to go, because we all know and we all get them as those sort of cold DMs that are trying to sell you something off the bat. And I don't know anyone where it really works for them if they do it that way. Whereas what you've done here is you've done a couple of cool things. You created a community as one aspect of it here, so people can get together, and you're almost like the face of that community. It's a lot like and you also did the breakfast group. It's a lot like having a networking group where people come to, and you're almost running that group. So straight away, you've got that credibility in itself. But then you're also doing things like webinars where you're providing real value to these people ahead of time, so for free. So by the time they actually need something, there's almost that element of reciprocity. And, maybe I should use Kate because she knows what she's talking about, right?
Yeah, so, and it's similar to as I said before, it's don't wait for permission. You build it and they will come. Interestingly, so that's exactly what I did. So I didn't wait to be, join a networking group and work my way up, or join a business and work my way up. And interestingly, I've got 3 children, but they're always saying funny things, and I get involved them in the business. And I was having a chat with one of my daughters recently who wants to be a teacher. And I was like, oh, what about, business, and look at this. And I said, then you could be the boss like mummy. And she said, you're only the boss because you started it first. I'm like, oh, thanks, Emma. I think there's a little bit more, but she's right. She's right in the fact that you build it, you make yourself the boss, and you make it work. So could I, compare that to join a consultancy or join an existing organization and work your way up? Would I be CEO? Probably not, because I want to build it in my way. But I just thought it was really funny. You're only the boss because you started it first.
Before you did all these things, did you consider it as a strategy, or did you just do them?
I followed it, and I often say I follow the breadcrumbs, and like Hansel and Gretel, they followed the breadcrumbs back, didn't they? But it's sort of I follow my intuition on things. So when I'm sure many lawyers have been through this, like, oh, this is hell, this is soul destroying, how do you get out? And you have these fantasies about going and working in a elephant sanctuary, or I'll become a Weight Watchers leader, or I'll make soap. In fact, my husband and I did start a soap making business at one point. But you have these sort of fantasies of escaping the grind, and that although I loved my job, and in certain aspect of of being a litigator. I love the trial wins. I love the clients. I love my colleagues. I hated that clocking in and clocking out. I hated time recording. I hated just feeling controlled, and I needed to
Hmm.
break out of that. So instinctively, I knew that wasn't the right path for me, but I didn't know it was this. I didn't
Yeah.
know I was an entrepreneur, which I do now know, but I
Hmm.
didn't find that out till I was 40, actually.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
I'd already hired people and, and had employees, I'm like, oh, right, yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be doing business. And that
Yeah.
penny's dropped just in the last few years.
No, it makes complete sense. And I think the way you went about doing it is just so almost organic. It's not forced. It's done in a natural way. Would you say that's how that's reflected in the revenue and how it's grown? Has it been sort of organic and like sort of built up over time, or has it had like really fast growth periods? What's it look like?
It's very fast. Well, in the moment it feels slow, right? And we could all do with more money, but when you look at if you say sort of look back to 3 years, we've just absolutely skyrocketed. And I
Hmm.
think that's because we move fast on opportunities and we take
Hmm.
risks. Whereas, our strategy has been let's grow this rapidly but
Hmm.
safely, and
Hmm.
that's all our decisions are go through that lens. Is we want to be safe, but we want to scale quickly. So when
Hmm.
every day you're faced with decisions, shall we do this event or shall we take this client on? Or there's so many sort of pivotal
Hmm.
moments in the day when you're saying, do we play it safe, or do we go, do we go with more aspirational intentions, but there's a risk to that. And more
Hmm.
often than not, if we think we're going to be safe, if the balance is we're more likely to get through this, we'll take that more aspirational decision. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a core, element of the business, is we are brave in those business decisions, but
Yeah.
also, mitigate, we've got to put in those mitigating factors because we're in risk,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Exactly.
we
Yeah.
play risk. Yeah, we're not afraid of risk. We
Yeah. Yeah.
play with the playground that is risk, which is
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
exciting.
Perfect. So outside of LinkedIn then and webinars,
Mm.
what other things do you do as a business to grow, to market yourself?
Yeah, we do a lot of hand-to-hand combat out there in the field. So we will
Yeah.
go to those business breakfast meetings. We will go to the events. So we are visible at a lot of events. And we brought on last year. We brought Graham Wood in as our head of partnerships,
Hmm.
who's well known in the industry, and he does a lot of that sort of what do you call it? Hand pressing, skin pressing. What do you call it when you
Uh,
go around shaking hands? Pressing
yeah, yeah.
skin.
Well, I actually don't know. Is it pressing the skin? Oh, yeah, maybe it is. I
Yeah,
don't know.
something like that, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he does a lot of that.
Hmm.
Outside of that, I was always very cautious, and I call it turn it. I never felt like we'd fully turned on the tap, and that's a phrase that I used to use all the time. Like, we've not even
Mm,
turned on the tap yet,
mm,
because the work was coming in from those sort of organically from being known on LinkedIn,
hmm.
and it was enough that we could handle whilst we got
Sure.
our strategies in terms of foundations and structures and processes. So
Hmm.
I was very fearful actually of turning on the tap, because I knew that the market's so big and buoyant for what
Yeah.
we do, is I didn't want to kill ourselves. So, but we've got this really strong infrastructure and strong team and strong leadership team. We're
Hmm.
a bit more brave with that. So
Sure.
we're now just starting on the journey of digital marketing.
Hmm.
So although we've already always had a website, we've not really not driven people to that website. So we're starting with strategies around, the whole SEO and driving
Hmm.
people to our website,
Yeah.
and also on using our LinkedIn in a more powerful way, so
Hmm.
that cold outreach, but warm outreach to existing contacts, so more in the DMs. So
Sure.
using strategies to get in the DMs,
Yeah. Yeah.
whereas we'd never relied on that in the past. We hadn't done that in the past.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we also use our mailing lists. So we've got a growing mailing list, subscription list, where we put
Okay.
out newsletters, but also that's how we speak to our clients and wider network. If there's any
Hmm.
upcoming legal changes, or come to this event or come to this webinar. We know,
Yeah. Yeah.
say, and we've done this many times, right, let's run a webinar on Friday on this topic. just push it out to our mailing list on the Monday, and by the Friday we got 70 people registered, and that's within 7 days. So we've got a very engaged list, which is really powerful for us. We've also started utilizing video as well.
Okay.
In a number of ways. So we use United Wolves Productions, who are a specialist video production company who they come in. They've done some video of us on site, and they provide us with a number of shorts every month, like reels, so that we can put those out and look really professional. And we also generate our own video content as well. So there's always something going out there. It's just to remain visible all the time. And we've also, we had our board meeting this week, and our finance director was like, do you know how much you're spending on marketing? Like, well, if you want to stay ahead, do we want to be the average? Because he referred to some stats from some market report. You've probably seen it, that most professional services firms spend 2.8% on marketing. This is what we said at our board meeting, and we're like, yeah, but do we want to be average? No.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you'd rather push it further, right? If you've got your systems in place, I think you've done it really well, because a lot of people like day one, like, I really want to be the biggest, I want to push, but it is very important to have those systems in place. But once you're there, you can sort of grow with confidence, knowing that, if we do get loads of extra clients, we can handle it, right? So,
this is it. And then the final piece of the puzzle, one of the final pieces, there's a few more pieces, but is we've engaged a PR company as well. So we're just undergoing our audit at the moment with them, and then they're going to give us some strategies and help us actually with getting in the press and raising our profile that 1, 2, 3 steps further.
Yeah, super important, because especially for someone who's built a business like you have as well, off the back of that credibility and being seen and known, I think that's just pouring some fuel on the fire and getting more out there, right?
It's not like, watch out, you've seen nothing yet, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Next stop, Forbes.
I'll say the front. I said, when I'm on the front of Times magazine, then we'll, in 5 years, but we'll see. Who knows?
You never know, right? Okay, cool. So you mentioned a few things there. So you mentioned SEO. So obviously a bit more of a longer term play, but wanting to be found there on Google when people are looking for you. Have you thought about the short term? So maybe using some Google ads to get you there immediately?
Google ads probably not. More LinkedIn ads. We've tried it a couple of times, but I think you really need to invest in that. You can't just put out one ad and expect it all to come flying in. So we need to be more intentional about that. But I think that strategy is going to sort of come to the fore once we're in this sort of mapping out phase of what we need it to look like, the whole strategy. So we're early days on that, really, but of course that will come.
Yeah, I think the LinkedIn stuff certainly would. If you're advertising on LinkedIn, I'd say if you approach it like you have done already, where it's less of trying to sell someone immediately, I think to promote things like your webinars or even community stuff, that sort of thing will do better typically on LinkedIn than just saying we're a risk and compliance company, blah, 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 and just go straight in. Because again, people aren't necessarily in the market when they see you on LinkedIn. It's more about nurturing.
Yeah, exactly. The one caveat I'd say on that is, both is that, keeping top of mind all the time and getting them in our world. But then I think strategically then doing a post around, SRA's up to this. Do you need an audit? And if that hits at the right time, then that will convert. But not to just hammer, do you need an audit? Do you need an audit? Do you need an audit? Because people just like, shut up about audits. So we always like to keep the conversation wider. And you mentioned community-based, and that's exactly how we operate, is that our clients, our contacts, our suppliers, our strategic partners are all part of this ecosystem that, is our world, if you like. And that's how we like to keep people in our, it's that community building, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's what you've done a really good job of doing so far. I think it's just really just elevating what you've already built, right? Because it's already working, it's already going in the right direction. It's just adding, like I said, more fuel to the fire.
And strategic partners as well has been really key to our growth, is having those other businesses that are in our world and we perhaps share the same client base, is if you get those really trusted connections, then not through that reciprocity, but there is a little bit of that, but it's more, I know that this business is going to do a great job for my client and I can see a need for my client, so it's added value for my client if I recommend them. So it's more from that perspective. So we have a number of firms that we work with it in that way. In fact, there's two businesses that come to mind where we share clients, so there's the same business on each client. And that works really well. So we we're almost colleagues in that sense, that we're working together to get the best for the client. That's worked really, really well.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. A lot of people overlook partnerships and they don't really consider that until really later on. But I mean, partnerships are a really good way of sort of growing your business and getting referrals and things, often for a quite low price. It's usually just an agreement between the two of you. That makes sense. Obviously, you've got email marketing, which makes sense for what you do, just to keep that going. Video, that again makes sense for what you do. So I think a lot of that is good. I think the SEO one's probably one that's going to take a bit longer, but I think overall, as long as it's built behind everything else, I think it should be a good play for you. That. What would you say is your biggest challenge then as a business? It doesn't have to be marketing led, but what would you say is the biggest challenge at the moment?
I think just on the marketing side, it's always being creative with coming up with something that's engaging. So it's not. I think we do it quite well, but there's always that. There's that we don't want to get complacent with that, and we need to show up in the right way. So that's a constant. In terms of challenging business, for us, it's really, how do we scale in a profitable way? So if we want to meet our ambitions of, growing, we've grown from 50,000 to 1 million. Now we want to get to 10 million. How do we get to there without killing ourselves? So it's about digital strategies, and it's about being smarter with how we deliver our service, but retaining the quality of the work. So that is, I mean, we're on that journey, but that's the challenge, is how do we get to 10 and be really profitable and also be doing a great job for our clients. So
well, hopefully there's someone listening to this that can say, right, I know exactly how I've done that, and they can send it over to you.
Yeah, exactly. But there are those in our network. We have those sorts of people, and that's what another valuable part of being a network. So I recently joined Eddie Whittingham's co-working space. If you've heard of it, Ministry of Work.
I've heard of him,
so I'm a member there. So there's a lot. I mean, Eddie himself is an exited founder for a SaaS company. He worked in legal as well prior to that. So he's a great resource, and others in that community are either exited founders or founders that are much longer further down the track, and also those more in the early phases, which I would still consider us on the early phases, that we can kind of bounce off each other and share challenges. So that's all in your network, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so important, and there is a lot of different options out there for networks as well. I've been a part of a few, and then there is a lot to choose from, but that's probably one of the key things to consider if you're going to join a network is the people around me first, or are the people at a similar level to me that we can share ideas, but then you really want to be looking for people that are a couple of steps ahead as well, that you can
100%,
ask questions, you can get,
and also not seeing your network, although it's part of your network building, is these sort of formal clubs is one way, and particularly if you've got zero network, that's a really good place to start. But I consider my network is anyone that I know or interact with. So my network, sort of, like, you've got a Venn diagram, you've got like so many different networks, and there's some crossover, and it's really a web of connections that aren't limited to those more formal networking groups. I think there's a place for them, definitely, but think of your network as a wider living thing.
I guess it's one of those where, I 100% agree. I think everyone that you know, and obviously drawing on those experiences, but at the same time having support as well, which is important to have those people around you. But then some people, again, if you like that structure to your life and you want to say, I want to be here this place every 2 weeks and meet with these people, again, there's those options as well
And there's
for you.
some that are more effective than others. So, and I know it's a bit Marmite to talk about BNI. Some people hate,
Yeah,
the BNI
yeah,
groups. I was, before actually I started in risk and compliance, because I wanted to be around entrepreneurs. I actually I was a member for about a year before I had twins, and then I was like, nah, I can't do this anymore.
yeah,
Basically, the structure there and there's the intention from everyone in that room is so motivated, and it's a scoring system, so you know that everyone's going to be working that, and that's a bit too extreme for some people, but
yeah,
others really like that. But the other end of the spectrum, you can have these groups and they might even meet once a week, but how effective are they? Are they actually effective in
yeah,
getting leads? And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
there's different value to each.
Yeah, no, for sure. One question I have, and it's on the marketing side, just so people can get a quick snapshot, really, of what you'd recommend. So, what would you say is the top 3 things that you'd say, right, if you were growing your business and you really want to, push it forward, what are the top 3 things you would pick?
I think you need to establish yourself personally as a thought leader, whether that's your technical or just thought leadership in business. It's that personal connection with people, and you being recognizable. And it's not necessarily going on video, although that's a good thing to do. But showing up, whether that's saying on LinkedIn, I think that's the place number one to start, is
Yeah, yeah.
build your presence on LinkedIn as a thought leader in your space. And that could be doing your own posts, but even if you don't like doing, that's not your style, in the comment section you
Yeah.
can establish yourself as an expert or be known in the comment section. I think, I mean, whether I do think actually having a website is important, and I'd be interested in hear your views on that. But just for that credibility, and maybe it's even just a holding page. But if someone finds you on LinkedIn and thinks, okay, this sounds like a credible expert, I'll check out their website. If they
Yeah.
don't have a website and they've got maybe a yahoo.com email address, then they're like, well, actually, are these people credible in business?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
definitely get yourself a website. And and I think just that the networking is really important. So that's be the third thing.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to start is from a referral, or someone that trusts you has recommended you. So definitely those are my 3 things.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, first of all, the thought leader thing, for me, one of the biggest differentiators you can have as a business is the people. So you and yourself, if you can put yourself out there and be almost your own brand and have people trust you, I think it's one step closer to be able to get business, especially in those earlier days. I think even for new businesses, if you haven't got the marketing budget to go spending thousands and thousands of pounds on marketing, even just starting with you and your knowledge is a good way to start. So yeah, I agree there. Website, yeah, obviously I'm a bit biased here, but I think websites are super important. I think the best way of describing it is you almost want them to act as that 24/7 salesperson for you to build in that credibility and to tell them why they should be using you. If someone goes to, you've mentioned a couple of things there where it's like that red flags pop up, Yahoo email or whatever. But people should be able to see you, go to your site, and then buy into you. So have those trust elements. Everything they need to know in order to use your service should be there. So by the time they call up, it's like you said before, it could be like a 3-minute call because they already know they want to use you. So that's the value of having a good website. And networking, yeah. I again, it doesn't necessarily have to be I'm going to BNI every week, but just considering everybody that you meet is part of that network, and just showing up as yourself. And actually, again, it comes down to trust. And I think most of what marketing is, for me at least, is trust. So if you can build in that trust and have people know you and refer you, again, it's just ticks all around, So yeah, I really like your list. I think it's a good free that. So last thing I want to talk to you about is just say, what's the goal for this year? I know you mentioned a few things like SEO and whatnot, but in terms of overall general growth goals, what you're looking to do? Is it to get to that 10 million, or is that way too aggressive?
Not this year. We definitely want need to crack the mill. Definitely crack the mill and make some, advance on that. But it's positioning more than revenue that we want to get right. So we know what we want to achieve. We know what we want to bring in. It's securing those key strategic partners or advancing down that roadmap to bring all the pieces together. So it may not be hitting that 10 mil. It definitely won't be this year, but it's paving the way so that, in the next year or the year after, then we sort of supercharge to that. So that's really important. We're also about to launch into the accountancy space as well, which is big news. You're hearing it first here because we've not announced it publicly. But that's it. We're sort of gearing up there. There's a lot of crossover with law firm compliance and accountancy, and we've got some really credible names in accountancy, risk and compliance that are joining us on that journey. So we're excited about that. So that all forms part of our growth plans. And also, we've not mentioned it as yet, but we've got Ibiza coming up in 2 weeks from the date of recording here. So it's called the Lawyers Retreat, and that's something that I co-founded with my co-founder Kirsty Papin from Aries Legal Practice Management. And again, that's something that is community building. So it's bringing law firms and the ecosystem that make up the legal sector together for a off-site retreat in Ibiza. And it isn't a holiday, although there'll be hopefully some sunshine. It is about that working on the business, not in the business. We're expecting mindset shifts. We're expecting some really practical applications so that those law firm leaders leave transformed in some way. So we're really excited about that. But that all goes to, as we were discussing before, that community building and making the conversation relevant, not just saying, do you want to buy an audit? Do you want to buy an audit? It's actually HiveRisk and Aries Legal Practice Management understand my business more holistically because they're putting on events like this, and actually the human behind that, and actually there's a collaborative essence to that as well. So some of our clients, what I will talk to about their growing, although I'm not a business management expert by any means, on a peer-to-peer level, we'll chat about sort of business challenges or aspirations. There's one particular client who, it's funny, but we joke in the WhatsApp about rated to 10 mil. They've just hit 1 million. Like, right, okay, let's go, let's race it to 10 mil. So it's those kind of, and I think that really sets us apart from some of our some of the consultancies in this network, is we see our clients as peers and collaborative business owners as well. So that's what I'm just so excited for Ibiza. And we've also got a conference in July at our HQ at HiveRisk Ribby Hall, is the Great Big Legal Offsite. We ran the first one last year with our co-founder is Rob Hanna from Legally Speaking Podcast. Last year was incredible, and it's future-proofing business for the SME law firms, and all the conversations, all the speakers are around that. Okay, in all the different ways, how can you future-proof your business? So we're coming again. This is year 2 in July, and our tagline this year is bigger, badder, braver. So we've got to sort of make it more impactful than last year. So we've got, as well as the themes of bigger, badder, braver in what we're talking, we've got a panel session on Tales from the Coalface, where SME law firm owners are coming to say, actually, what's the reality like on the ground here, and what their plans are to future proof and grow. But we've also got monster trucks coming, because bigger, badder, brave, you've got to have monster trucks. We've commissioned Peter Dixon, who's the voice of the X Factor. And Britain's Got Talent, and last night at the Apollo, or whatever what's that called, something at the Apollo, live at the Apollo. He's coming to compare, because we've got to be bigger, badder, braver. And we've also got, again, I don't think we have published this now, is we've got an AI robot called Titan coming, who's sort of he's a proper life-size robot that is going to be able to interact with the audience, and I think he's got his own segment on stage as well. So
wow, okay.
Again, we like to do things a bit different.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, got robots and monster trucks and Rachel on a Daisy. That's the only thing I remember him saying.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's it. So, and then we've got the VIP dinner the night before. So anyone who's coming the day before, we're going to have like put on a bit of a show there. Yeah. So, you know, but we're all about, and it plays into the community building. It plays into the being noticed and being thought leaders outside the sort of narrow remit that is, we do risk and compliance. We are part of this community, and we, you know, trailblazers in this community, and we're really good at risk and compliance.
yeah, exactly. I love that. And it's just about being known, right? I think that's one of the hardest parts of marketing, is just being in front of people and being memorable. So I think it certainly would be memorable with robots and monster trucks. So love that. Perfect, Kate. So where I'd like to finish up is, if someone wanted to get in touch with you or speak to you, whatever, what's the best way of doing that?
Connect on LinkedIn with myself, and if you find the HiveRisk business page and you see who else is involved, the business leaders in there, connect with them as well. So the teams are always putting out good stuff. But we've got a website, hiverisk.com. But if you're connected with us on LinkedIn, you can't miss us. In fact, you probably have to unfollow us because we are relentless in what we put out.
Yeah.
You won't miss us.
No. Not with monster trucks and whatnot you're going to be posting about. So yeah. Well, Kate, it was a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Been great. Thanks, Oli.